Hi everyone, and welcome to Channel 4 WJXT, the local station. My name is Jana Angel. That's right, I'm Miss Angel's slightly older sister. So welcome to our studio. This is where I come to work every single day. I'm so excited to introduce you to some of our teammates that make up our viral weather coverage team. Now for us, viral weather is typically flooding, hurricanes, and tornadoes. And it's so important for all hands to be on deck when viral weather hits because we want to make sure that our viewers and our locals are safe and sound. Now, a couple terms you want to be familiar with when talking about weather coverage in news. Number one is an IFB. This is our inner ear monitor that allows us to talk to whoever is in the booth running the show behind the scenes. It's really important because we get information directly in our ear as anchors and reporters from the producers and the directors, especially during viral weather coverage, during a hurricane or during a flood or during a tornado. Things are changing every single second and we need to know what's happening outside of our studio doors. So that is an IFB. The second you'll hear is a teleprompter. Now, the thing about a teleprompter is, yes, it is giving you direct information and telling you words to say, but often during weather coverage, we are unscripted. My show every single day is completely unscripted. I have a few talking points, the names of my guests, and everything else is made up off the top of my head. It's important to do your research prior to make sure that you can have a genuine conversation with not only your audience, but whoever that guest is sitting beside you. Let me take you on a tour around the newsroom. When you walk in, you'll be greeted by Keith, who is our amazing front desk host. Now, he is our first impressions coordinator, and he makes sure that all of our guests are checked in and ready to go in the green room whenever it's time for their segment on air. Next, you'll hit the newsroom. This is where all of the action is happening in terms of breaking news, where reporters are writing their stories, content's getting ready for web, and our social media team is jumping into action to make sure that everything is up to date on all of our social media platforms. Now, upstairs, we have our sales department. These people aren't in the office a lot because they're out making great relationships with local businesses who want to get a bigger reach in advertising for their business. Now, downstairs, you'll have two studios, Studio A and Studio B. We use both of them to make sure that we have different shots, different angles, and different ways to cover local businesses, entrepreneurs, and tastemakers sharing their stories. Now let's stop by the control room, or as we call it, the booth. This is where a lot of the magic happens because all of our directors and engineers and producers are going to be in here making sure that our show is getting on the air with no time delays and with no errors. There are graphics that actively have to be punched and put on the air by an individual every single hour that we are on the air. So that's what happens in here. Now let me take you back to engineering. Engineering is another busy hub where people are making sure that everything is working properly, from a mouse on your computer all the way up to an antenna tower or a beach cam in Jacksonville Beach. Without further ado, let's meet the team.
My name is Weston Panetta. I am a director here at Channel 4. So directors are the main people who get us on the air as far as the technical part of it. As soon as the meteorologists are like, hey, we've got a warning, we've got severe weather, let's go, we say, okay, we call the people who are called Encompass and our hub, and we say, hey, we gotta break in, we gotta get on air. And then we run the graphics, and basically we're the entire behind the scenes somewhat of making sure we get on the air. We run the graphics, we make the calls, we say, okay, you're on this microphone and we need you to go like for this long and all of that. The way we communicate with the anchors and the meteorologists is through IFBs and a headset system. So preferably when they're not talking, we get in their ears and we say, hey, we've got pictures of damage from this place, and we've got a new meteorologist is coming in to relieve you, to give this person some space. We've got a reporter out in the field. Tree just went down behind them. We're going to take this live shot. Please introduce it, and things like that. So it's the IFB system, and then we have a little talkie box so that they can talk to us and it doesn't go on over the air. One of our big viral moments in my career was in Raleigh, North Carolina, that we got snow and they're not used to snow, and they're in boxes, and my meteorologist was explaining how much snow they got on the ground, and all the microphones were up, and my reporter cussed on air and was like, "Oh my God, that's a lot of snow!" And everyone just froze, and the meteorologist took a breath and then kept on going. In a breaking news, breaking weather situation, we are up. Generally, I would fill in or cover the person before me who is up till 2 a.m. and then I'd come in at 2 a.m. With the biggest cup of coffee I can find and relieve them, and then just get straight to working, pretty much taking over whatever they've done, or in that situation of getting us on the air and making sure the team is ready to go, and then punching the big red button to get us on air. The hardest part of being a director when we're in breaking news situations, breaking news or breaking weather, same thing in our brain, is the amount of cooks in the kitchen. Sometimes that's kind of, I guess, an old expression maybe. Too many cooks in the kitchen, there's too many bosses, there's too many voices that are trying to be heard, and that can be very stressful, especially when you're the person in charge of making the calls and pushing the buttons, but you're also a part of a team. So you have to listen and hear what everybody else is saying, and then you decide what to do. So it's hard when 15 voices are going on in your head, or not in your head, behind you, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna just do this. And that's definitely the hardest part. My favorite part of directing in TV and news is the breaking news, is the breaking of format, as my bosses would say. It's the adrenaline rush, it's the, oh my God, let's go, let's get on air, okay, we're doing this, okay. And it's when you turn around and your team's looking at you like, what do we do? And you're the one like, this is what we're gonna do. And you're like the genius behind it, I guess. So even though breaking news and breaking weather, and it's very stressful, and you're hoping everybody's safe, and you're texting your loved ones, making sure they're safe and things like that, you're actually kind of having fun at work because you're with your coworkers and your friends, and you know that of course they're safe, but you get to you get in that high rush adrenaline pumping, heart pumping motions, and it's pretty fun.
Hey everybody, I'm Richard Nunn. I'm the meteorologist here at Channel 4. I'm the morning meteorologist, which means on our shift we get to have a little bit more fun compared to what they do in the evening. But welcome to our office. We share it collectively. Our office, unlike some of the managers that actually have a door and windows and things like that, I've got a green screen, which on St. Patrick's Day means that no, you can't wear green. Otherwise you just completely disappear. It's like the special effects in a movie. It is a constant barrage of information that we're getting in and trying to find the best path in order to get it out to the viewer. So with all of our platforms, you know, we're feeding all of the social type of platforms, but primarily being here at the station, we're trying to get the information out in a way that isn't going to overly alarm somebody if there's really not something to make out of weather. If, you know, we could be covering weather that's bad to the south or to the west of us, but it's not here in Jacksonville, and we try to cover it that way. And I think that is, you know, when we say viral, the most important part of all this is if we're looking at weather, and even here in the news business, you know, we're not looking at it as clicks. What we're looking at is a way to get the information out, especially in dangerous weather that could potentially be life-saving, whether it's tornadoes or hurricanes and things like that. And hurricane coverage, as Jenna now knows, isn't just one day. It's not the time that the hurricane is actually here in Jacksonville or in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia. It starts days before. We know that sometimes these things are coming for 2 weeks, and we'll talk about it every single day for 2 weeks. Then it finally gets here. And in all of that time, you're thinking, okay, people are prepared. But folks keep thinking, oh, it's gonna go this way, it's gonna go that way. And that's the job. You know, if you're relaying the information, it's not convincing, it's helping to educate people that here is the worst case scenario. The best case, yeah, we're wrong and it misses us, but we know what's coming, we know when it gets here, and we know what the impacts are. So that is the focus in the weeks that lead up to it. Everything from reminding people about the basics. Hey, make sure you got a lot of water, because guess what? People run out of water. They'll go and buy a stack of toilet paper this high, and they'll buy 1 bottle of water. Toilet paper this high, 1 bottle of water. What's wrong with that picture? Well, the water bottles of water should be as high as the toilet paper as far as I'm concerned. So these are the things that we're trying to educate those on. Now, tornadoes are immediate and everything is happening fast. It's a whirlwind. The warning comes on and we're on air, and they usually last anywhere here about a half hour to 45 minutes. I don't even realize that that amount of time has gone by, because you're talking about things and you're really going mile to mile to mile and trying to keep folks that are in that next mile ahead of what's coming. And at the same time, the entire station erupts in almost like a beehive of activity, where I've got great producers that are on the phones in the counties where these troubles may be happening. They're calling emergency services, they're calling the local fire and police departments, they're working with mayors or whoever may be in those towns, and they're doing so to say, hey, is there damage there? And when there is, then we get their input, so we can say, here's what's happened at point A, you're at point B, point C, point D, point E. You know, these are all the areas that we're looking at, so that we can start giving people the heads up. And with our systems, our technologies, we're able to track, as we call it, and not only that, we're able to extend where the storm is going and have an idea not only of a timeline, but what kind of damage could be there at those times. The two tops, obviously, number one is tornadic activity, and we stop everything when that happens. The hurricane is a team effort, and that's really where the entire station, from sales all the way through management, all the way down here to the weather office, everybody cohesive in getting the information out. And with our reporters out on the scene, with Jana out on the scene, standing in, well, I would say standing, falling in waist deep, shoulder high water. All of those add to things that do tell the story. And at the end of it, we get a little chuckle and can breathe that sigh of relief once the hurricane moves either into the Gulf or into the Atlantic, and we get the all clear, which then we're still not done. The next day goes into the cleanup coverage, the damage coverage, and things like that. So like I said, 2 weeks of coverage. It's coming off the coast of Africa. It's coming here, 24 hours to 36 hours of very intense coverage. And then the next 24 hours, we're following the cleanup efforts and anything else that may have happened. You know, some of the worst that we've seen here, the flooding over the last several years, and that was actually more than just the next 24 hours. That was several days of covering some of the saddest stories from folks losing absolutely everything because of the flood. And that's the other part of the story, and that's what we have to be reminded of. And I think one of the best examples is somebody said to a buddy of mine, another meteorologist, is it going to rain today at a specific time? And so his answer was kind of meteorological talk. Well, there's a 30% chance at this time. And the guy said, yeah, but is it going to rain here at this time? And that's really what the folks want to know. When it comes to the dangerous stuff, they want to know when it's coming in, when it's leaving, and really how bad's it going to get. And on top of that, even though they know their own safety steps, they want those reminders that when things start to hit the fan, that it's time for you to hit the road. We do have a teleprompter, but what we see is what you see at home. We're seeing the same maps that you see. So that means that I don't have the words in front of me. Like an anchor is constantly getting information from stories that they may not be fully versed in. I get in every morning at about 3:15, and I spend a full hour on a regular day. I spend a full hour just putting together the forecast. And by that time, I've done my own forecast, I've written it, I've recorded it and sent it out to the radio, I've published our stuff on the website. So by the time that I'm going on air, I've really done it 4 times already. So it's in my head, and then I can tell you the story, and with the help of our computers that are constantly getting information in, I can give you the information from right now, and then we can move it into the future and give you an idea of what we're going to expect. In that transition, 2002, 2003, 2004, number of hurricanes came across Florida, whether it was to our south or here across Jacksonville. And there were multiple times where it was just too bad to leave the station after my part of the coverage for me to drive in it to get home. So I, made arrangements and called my wife and said, I'm not going to be home tonight. And we have areas here where we've kind of we used to have a different office, but now we just basically find a quiet corner, open up the sleeping bag, and yeah, we've slept here. I think everybody on the team maybe with the exception of the newest guy. I think everybody on the team has done an overnighter here because of active weather. The craziest story was the longest period of talking I think that I've ever done other than this interview. And it was a tornado that was starting just outside of our area, but where the box ended was the first county that makes up our viewing circle. I didn't see it slowing down. The computers didn't see it slowing down. And so I said, hey, we need to get on this now, even though it's not in our county warning area, CWA. And we jumped on it. We tracked that thing for 2.5 hours across the state of Georgia. We confirmed a number of times that it had touched down, then back into the air, still rotating back down again. And finally, when we got our reporters saying, hey, this is where it's heading, they were there. And within minutes, we had the coverage of a Babcock furniture building that had basically had the entire front of it ripped off in a tornado. And so when it was all done, this was a day kind of like today, beautiful in the morning, sunny skies, and one little cluster of thunderstorms turned into a pretty dynamic cell, and as it rotated through. And I'll tell you that when we were done, just because it was unexpected, everybody came in here and they were just like, wow, okay, that escalated pretty quickly. This was like, yeah, we're gonna watch it too, being into full-blown coverage and doing so for 2.5 hours. And you know, you talk about all the emergency management. I think we crossed over 4, 5, 6 counties. And so the producers, we talked to every emergency management office along the way. We talked to Highway Patrol in Georgia. We talked to the county cops. We talked to the city cops all the way through, and we tracked that thing. And when it was all said and done, we could go back with the National Weather Service and say, we started covering it here, and we watched as the damage reports just started to stack up. So I think that, as far as what was really viral, the pictures were everywhere. It was all over Facebook and all that, was probably the biggest, most dangerous and the biggest event other than a hurricane covering through this area.
Hi guys, my name is Amanda DeVoe and I am a morning news anchor and reporter at WJXT TV in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm on The Morning Show. I've been covering hurricanes and storms for 9 years now. I have covered them not only here in Florida, but also in Alabama. And I've also covered blizzards and snowstorms in the Midwest, in Illinois and Wisconsin. That's a good question. Has there been a moment where I have covered viral weather and it stuck out in my mind? Well, I will say recently covering Hurricanes Ian and Nicole, those were truly catastrophic hurricanes, and they did a lot of damage, especially here in Florida. So one thing that I can say that really stuck out to me was actually seeing a gentleman get electrocuted with my own eyes and covering it as it was happening. And my photographer and I, we actually called 911. We decided we were not going to report on this right away. We wanted to make sure that he was okay, so we called 911. An ambulance came over. They had to tread through the waters in this really tall truck because you couldn't get through because the waters were several feet high. And so it was a really scary situation. Thankfully, the man survived. They did chest compressions. They sent him to the hospital, and he's doing okay now. But it was definitely a scary situation. The studio is totally different than being out in the field covering viral weather. What I can say is in the studio it's a lot warmer, and you don't have to worry about getting wet or anything getting ruined, but you still have to make sure that you are on top of the breaking news situations, making sure that you're communicating with producers, reporters that are out in the field, making sure that they are safe, and knowing that this is always a situation that can change at a moment's notice. So there are differences from being in the field and being in the studio during situations like hurricanes and snowstorms. What I will say is that I do prefer actually being out in the field as opposed to sitting on the anchor desk, because I'm actually out in the action, informing the public, informing the viewers at home, and I get to experience it firsthand as it develops. In the studio, we use what's called an IFB. That's an earpiece that we have connected to an audio box where we can hear producers, directors in the studio, and also we can hear reporters. So that's one of the options that we have. We also use a microphone to help communicate. Always make sure that you have your laptop on hand so that you have email up, and always make sure you have your phone as well so that you can text reporters if you can. Also making sure that you're able to communicate with producers that are in the newsroom while you're here in the studio, because sometimes you just do not have that flexibility. Sometimes commercial breaks just do not happen, especially when it's breaking news, where you just you have to be on the desk. So you have to make sure that you have several forms of communication while you're sitting on the anchor desk, especially during breaking news situations. Now in the field, it's a little different. So when I'm out in the field, I have to make sure that I am fully prepared for at least 12 hours, 12-hour shifts, especially when we're covering hurricanes and snowstorms. So that means having a hurricane kit with plenty of food, water, making sure that you have battery packs just in case your cell phone goes out or just in case you're in an area that doesn't have power. For me, I have 2 phones. I have 2 cell phones. So if one starts messing up, I have another one as backup. And that did happen to me one time. My phone suffered water damage because the winds were so high, the water was getting high, and it was just a crazy moment, especially out there covering the hurricanes. So I definitely made sure that I had that backup phone. Also, AirPods, headphones, earbuds, whatever you want to call them, making sure that you're able to communicate out in the field so that you can communicate with your producers, and also making sure that you're safe at the time. It's never a problem to let someone know that, hey, I do not feel safe reporting at this point in time, because there's always a time to make sure that the public is okay, but you only have one life. So it's always important to make sure that you stick up for yourself, especially when you're out covering snowstorms or hurricanes, because you only have one life. What I will say is that you make sure that you study your craft. If you're interested in weather and meteorology, it's so important to know how things work, how weather happens, that it's always a fluid situation. If you want to be a journalist one day, always make sure that your writing is on top of your writing. Also make sure that you're constantly reading and knowing what's going on in the world around you. That will definitely help prepare you. And always be prepared to, just in case, be prepared to hear the word no. That is something that I have heard so many times throughout my career, but if I heard no the first time and gave up, then I wouldn't be an anchor today. So I always say, no matter what, there will be people who will tell you no. Some people will say you may not be good enough. You have to just ignore those haters and keep it pushing, because you will get that throughout your life. But it's how you handle those situations that really makes the difference.
Hey friends, how are you? My name is Fouad Raja. Yes, my name is Fouad, and the name is a little bit challenging because I'm actually from Egypt, and I have been here in the States for 10 years, and I've been working with Channel 4 for the last 3 years. And I have actually been asked to give you a tour of what do we do on a normal day as a photographer at this station. So here I am. I'm going to give you the tour. So I'm just going to switch the camera on the other side. This is what we call the shop, where you can find all the equipment and all of the lockers for all of the other photographers. And this is actually my locker right here. And as you see, there's no camera because the camera is in the car where we're gonna go right now. It is so much fun to be working at a news station. Oh, and it's raining. Actually, I have been asked to give you a tour of what do we usually do during hurricanes, and I'm gonna show you in a minute what we're gonna do in the next hurricane, if we have one. This is my car, it's number 4, and that's what you see when you open a photographer's car. You're gonna see the camera. These are TV cameras with these huge lenses, and please excuse that I am filming and talking at the same time, so that might not be so accurate. And that's the microphone that has the Channel 4 flag. This is what we call a live view backpack. This is when we go out on the field. This is the device that gives the connection to the camera and connect both to the control room, so we can they can cut us live on air. That's of course the tripod, and yeah, that's pretty much all what we have in the car. There is a very cool camera that is attached right here. As you see, this is a dash cam, and we usually use it for drive cams. When we have storms, when we have rain, when we have accidents on highways, we just connect this straight to the live view, and they can use it live on TV. But as for the request to show you what do we do during hurricanes, these cars are actually compatible to hold in severe weather. As you see, they're huge cars. So what we usually do, we see where the current of the wind, and then we park the car against it and we stand on the other side, so the car can actually act as a shield so we don't fly in the air during a hurricane. But on the very other side of the parking lot, you see here a very cool car called the Storm Track, and this is the beast car that usually is used during hurricanes and storms and like big weather issues. As you see, there is a camera on top, and we call it a PTZ camera, pan, tilt, zoom. And then if you see closely here, there is a satellite. And the reason why we have a satellite plate here is sometimes when we are in severe weathers, we don't have connection to the internet. We don't have access to internet. So this plate, this satellite plate, gets satellite internet. It gets internet from the satellite. So we can use it to go live on TV during severe weather. This is the plate, how it looks like when it's closed, and this is how it looks like when it's up. That's just the same. Well, it's a different car brand, but it does the same thing, and it's also used during hurricanes and severe weather storms. Yeah, that's a quick tour in a day of a photographer at Channel 4. Again, my name is Fouad, and it was very nice talking to you. And you guys have a great day. Bye.
All right, kids, that's a wrap, as we would say here at the studio. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great session studying viral weather.